Good day to you. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this. So, you know that we've been discussing about child abuse, child adverse experiences, childhood traumas, and really today we are going to put the icing on the cake and understand how does all that relate to our adulthood relationships. Okay. And of course, I'm privileged to have the best in the country, Dr. Carol. Please introduce yourself. And I know you don't need introduction, but for the sake of the people who are just joining in, please introduce yourself and please we'll go to the depth of our discussion. Karibu.
Okay, interesting title, that very flowery, but I receive it. The best in the country.
I think you are.
Thank you, Doc. My name is Dr. Carol. I do a lot of things. I'm a mom. I'm an auntie to many. But in terms of what I do in my profession and what I'm really passionate is to just create spaces for families to thrive mentally.
So on childhood trauma and childhood adverse experiences, what exactly does it mean? I found so many definitions, and I'll read what I found, and then you, of course, being the expert, you can just try to tweak it. I took the simplest I found.
Okay.
What it says is it's a significant distressing experience that a child may have been exposed to. So the key word being significant. So that's what I was like, okay, so what is significant and what is not?
Yeah.
Is that correct? Is that enough? Is that
yeah. And for me, I love simplicity. So I love the simplicity of that definition, significant experiences. That
distressing experiences, significant distressing experiences that a child may have experienced.
Yes. And significant there is very important because significant means it's not a one time. Okay. And that's very important that we lay that out here because because of all the information that's coming at us, Dr. Lema, is that we are too careful. We're like, oh, I hope I don't ruin, so we are working on eggshells around our children and in this parenting space. And that's not good for our confidence because it makes us second guess ourselves. So what here is significant. And significant means it's happening frequently.
Okay.
It is happening frequently and for a prolonged time. Okay. And yes, we can have one or two very serious experiences that affect us later in life. But when we come to actual, just for it to be trauma, for it to even be considered as trauma, it has happened for a long time. And now it's affecting who we are as adults. So a few of the spaces, of course, physical abuse. Okay, emotional abuse. And we talked about emotional abuse and how that affects children. Neglect. Okay, just a parent who is not consistently there, a child who is left to fend for themselves, okay, a child who is left to take care of the younger ones. If a death has happened in a family for a significant person to the child, so most likely a parent or a sibling, and then it's not so much that the death happened, but how was the child supported during that process? Okay, because when things like that happen, we ignore children. We say, those ones. We don't even say anything. We just focus on the adults.
It is true. It is true.
We focus on the adults and all these other things that we need to do, and then we come back and we move on. So what else? Parents, children who are going through separation, the family separation and divorce. Again, how are we handling that space? Okay, children whose parents have been incarcerated, like in prison. So that's a significant distressing experience. Violence in the home. What else? Mental illness. Like parents who are experiencing mental illness as well as a child is growing up, and then substance abuse. And I think I must add here also addiction. I think even as we were defining adverse childhood experiences before, the issue of addiction in the various forms was not very It was mostly substance abuse. But now the different kinds of addiction, the different ways people are addicted, whether it's to gambling, whether it's to internet, whether it's to pornography, any of those would still, and I might add even to work, because when you're addicted to work and you're so consumed by it, more times there's neglect that happens there. Those are the significant ones, but we need to remember it frequently and for a prolonged period of time.
Okay. So I'm looking at pornography. Okay, you said work is because you will not have time. So things like pornography. And the reason I picked pornography is, okay, number one, it's very common these days, but that's not the reason. The reason I picked pornography is because this is between a parent and their body. You see, like how does a child come in there?
One, the child might be exposed to it just because it's available, and we need to remember that that's also sexual abuse. If a child walks in on adults watching pornography, it is sexual abuse. Okay. We always think sexual abuse is actually the physical act.
Yeah.
Yes. True. But even touching, suggestive words, even just describing a child's breasts, in a very suggestive way and all that, all is sexual abuse. So that, of course, in that way, then if a child walks in, or again, our kids' phones, they have access to them, and then they come across pornographic material there. But then on top of that, just think about what pornography does. It's like any other addiction. It takes you away from being present. And then so it's like what is it called? That effect. That that, what do we call it?
The ripple.
The ripple effect. Yes, the ripple effect. Yes. So because of the ripple effect, then there's neglect there. You're absent emotionally as well.
Yeah, it's true.
The ripple effect. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So how does that affect us though? Okay, maybe before we go there, does age matter? Like, for example, one person went through maybe addiction, like maybe their parent was addicted when this child was maybe a toddler or a preschooler, and this other one went through the same experience, but then they were a teenager. Okay. Will they have the same impact?
There will be impact.
Okay. Okay.
The same, again, it really depends. It depends on how long it is. It depends on how much the child was exposed to it. Okay. But there will be impact either way. I think that maybe as a teenager, you would say, okay, if they had a very stable life in the beginning and then that happens during teenage, that the effect might be less. But no, again, in teenage, it's like that's a whole other set of development going on. Yeah. Okay, and that's when they're seeking identity. So for me, there's just if there is effect, you get there is effect no matter the age, but I would say still, the first is it 1,000 days of a child's life?
Yes, the first,
yes. So we need to pay special attention to that, especially when it comes to neglect, the child not being held, the child not being soothed when they need to be soothed. That's very, very important. Then it becomes ingrained. However, if by good luck and by a good fortune that changes, in age 6, 7, and 8, and the right environment is provided, it's possible to reverse these things. And that's the most important thing to remember. That it's possible to reverse these things if the parent gets help and the parent chooses to be whole and well and work on themselves. Then the environment just begins to change, and that changes the trajectory of how the brain is responding. In fact, say that we need to understand that as much as trauma changes the brain, because that's what happens, traumatizing experiences, they change the makeup of the brain. Okay? Especially as a young child, when there's a lot of hostility, neglect, violence, and all that. The part, and when you see brain scans, the part of the brain that really, really grows is the the lower part, the limbic brain, and the brain stem, where you have to make sure that you are on alert, you are on fight or flight, all that, because that's the one that's
emotions are heightened. Yeah.
Yes. So that's what activated the most and more, and so it grows. But then it inhibits the growth of the intellectual part of the brain. That's why we have learning disorders later, learning issues. Those children, the memory part of also is really affected, and so we need to then understand that trauma changes the brain. What we also need to remember is that healing changes the brain.
Okay.
That's the hope, because we focus so much on that, the first part, and we're not even undermining it. It does change the brain in very adverse ways. But if we give opportunity for healing to occur, it changes the brain, because the brain is developing all the way into the 30s.
Okay.
Yeah, and later is harder, of course. Let's be realistic, but let's do something.
It's better than nothing. Yeah. Okay. And what about the person who is inflicting that the trauma? Does it matter? For example, someone who has been inflicted with maybe mom, like your own biological mom or dad, versus someone who has had issues with their auntie or maybe your nanny or your teacher in school. Does that also affect the level of trauma and all that?
It does, because it depends on the extent of attachment that you have. Okay. It depends. So if this is your biological parent, or even the parent, your primary caregiver, the depth of attachment is different from a teacher, for example. Sometimes the attachment to a nanny is also really deep, and I'm sure you've experienced that there is some, gosh, there's a closeness that our kids have with the nanny that
I have had that. It's
exactly. And so we need to understand that kind of attachment happens because of increased contact, and this person being able to meet the basic needs of the child. Okay. Attachment happens there. That's how we form attachments, because of soothing, because of the being seen, being felt. Okay. So if we don't, now it depends on that. If there's a frequency of contact where this person is meeting the needs and then they abuse them, then that's when now we have insecure attachment happening. So there's secure attachment, and then there is so secure attachment is when your needs are being met, when there's balance, in the relationship. It's not that you're doing, the parent is not putting boundaries, but they are putting boundaries. The boundaries are consistent. The relationship is healthy. The child can feel safe. Knowing that even if my mom leaves, they're going to come back. So there's no anxiety to that. We also need to remember that when this research on secure and insecure attachment was done, 70% scored high on secure attachment. So there are many securely attached people out here. Okay. There are many securely attached people out here. I think we really need to lace these conversations with positivity and hope.
Yeah.
Get stuck in the negative.
Okay. Yeah. So I want you to, because you've started the attachment, because that's, I think, one of the effects of now the childhood trauma. I want you to explain the insecure. How do we do it? How do we attach ourselves insecurely with other people? Now we are adults. We're children, we are adults. Yeah. What is this thing called insecure attachment? How does it happen, and how do you tell?
Yeah, so there's different spaces it shows up. We attach insecurely by avoiding. We just you because of the neglect you experience, you stay away. So they're the loners, they're the people who avoid getting in. people call them commitment phobia, you know. Yeah, they don't want to get committed because the template that was formed when they were young is that don't get too close. And then the message was, you're not, when you get close, you make me anxious, you know, that maybe the parent just wasn't there. Okay. And so they develop a lot of anxiety around relationships. And so there's the avoidant way, and it shows up in different ways, you know, maybe jumping from one relationship to another, not being able to commit. Okay. Yeah, and you know, these are unconscious things. Okay? And there's where we attach anxiously, where you are clingy, where you are not very sure what's going on because it's very unpredictable, because your caregiver is unpredictable. So one time they were close, another time they were not. Yes. So there's anxiety around that. So you get clingy, very suspicious. Very hard to take criticism. You know, you don't take criticism well. So it basically, what I can say is it shows up in relationships. Okay? Either clingy, you avoid, you are a loner, you recreate the dynamics of your past. Okay. Yeah, you recreate it without even knowing, because that's what's familiar. Okay. So you grow up in an environment where parents would fight a lot, whether it's physical or emotional or just a lot of words against each other. Then your template for relationships are chaotic. And so you grow up and a relationship is going well, subconsciously you're like, there's something wrong. Let's create the chaos. Okay. Let's create chaos. So somehow you recreate that chaos because that's what's normal and that's what's familiar.
It's interesting. It's very interesting because I think we sometimes okay, I'm currently going through therapy, but I remember sometimes you would think being a loner is okay. Like, please. Yeah, you would think being a loner is okay. And it's simply because it's really you're running away from that commitment. Because you are not sure, okay, what else? What else? What ifs? You also have those what if this doesn't go. Yeah.
And it all boils down to the belief system that you develop as a result of those experiences. So one is, I'm not good enough. Good enough to be loved. So you put up a wall. Okay. I'm not good enough to be loved. So let me work hard to make sure I'm people pleasing. Okay. So it still comes from the same belief system, but depends on maybe your temperament, just your natural wiring. Okay. And so there are those who will avoid, but there are those who will go out of the way. You become a doormat, you become a people pleaser. Not good enough. So let me seek attention. Let me be the one who is the noisemaker in class. I'm not good enough, and therefore let me be a bully, you know, and feel good about making people feel small as I am. So the way one belief system can take you into
so different
directions.
Okay. And of course that comes to trust. Because then it's difficult to trust someone if you are having that.
How do you develop trust when that wasn't and then we have that very basic trust versus mistrust stage by one of those basic
developmental. I remember
Eric and so if my needs are not met, then the world is a bad place. The world is, you know, a place I need to be careful about the world. So there's issue of trust. You have people to trust, you can avoid, you can control. Okay. So again, it will play out in different things. And so the important thing, and like when you're in therapy, what we really want to find out is, what are you believing about yourself? Because that's what we want to deal with, rather than trying. And you just trust that person. We want to find out, where is it coming from? Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that will be reflected on how we communicate as well.
Exactly.
Because, yes, as you said, so you are either a doormat, that means everything is okay with you, or
Yes,
you're
yes.
magnetic, everything should either go your way. Is that what is the opposite of being a doormat when it comes to communication?
I think there's aggressiveness.
Okay.
So, and if you could just look at it in the simple way of either passive or aggressive or assertive. Okay, so passive is the doormat. Aggressive is the bully who is outside the bully. Then there's also passive aggressive. Where you really show people without doing anything. Like, let me show them. Okay, and so you agree on things, and then that person just doesn't show up. In a WhatsApp group, they're the ones who are just quiet and they won't say anything, but not because they're just quiet people, but they're like, you guys will really see who I am. So there's that aggression, but in a passive way. Okay, that's one of the most frustrating people to interact with, because they don't communicate at all. Okay, then of course there's the passive. The passive is the yes person, doormat. We talked about the aggressive, the yeller, the shouter, the one who speaks over you and can even be physically violent. And then of course now the healthy one is the assertive communication. It's a skill that you have to actually learn, to be able to communicate, to be able to use I statements, to be able to own how you're feeling without saying, you have made me feel that way. When this do that, this is how I feel about it.
Okay. Wow. Yes, I think I've interacted with a bit of some passive aggressive people, and as you say, actually nothing moves forward.
No, nothing.
Because nothing moves forward. You agree on A, then A is never done. Then you come to realize actually they wanted B, C, and D instead of an A, and no one really said anything about it. It's quite frustrating. It's very frustrating.
You're one of the most frustrating people to have to be in a relationship with.
I know. Oh my, yes. Yes, that is so true. So now, what are the implications now? Who are these people likely to date? Are they likely to? Because most people will say, again, this is just from my own observation. Most people will say they would prefer someone who compliments them. That's what everybody says. I want someone who compliments me. So now, if you have someone who has gone through this, what is their compliment, and how does that work out eventually?
I think that, it's one thing to desire someone who compliments you. It's another thing to actually attract that person, because it's from a healthy place that you attract a healthy person who will compliment you, like, for real. Okay. So we think these people are complimenting us, but if you ever had this statement, and I have used it before when I was in an unhealthy space, you're saying, this person gets me. Okay. What that means is that they are meeting a gap that you have not worked on feeling yourself. You haven't worked on it. And so in your mind, they are meeting that gap. And so that's all, as long as they are meeting that gap, you blinds you. And when I say meeting that gap, is not even in a healthy place. Okay. It's just that, maybe if you are clingy, and this person is for you, there for you all the time, you're like, this person gets me, but it's actually healthy. Okay. So from an unhealthy space, you can never really be able to judge and say, this person gets me. This person compliments me. It will be from an unhealthy place. But from a healthy space, because you know how to take care of those needs yourself, because you're so secure, initially those needs come from you.
Yeah.
And without them, so you don't really need someone to complement you in that sense, because you
Mm.
come as a whole.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
and it's two whole people. And I'm not saying a whole is perfect. It just means you don't need that person to fill any gap.
Mm.
Complement. How about one full person and one full person and come together and make one?
Yeah.
Yeah, this and by one again, I don't mean that you're all doing the same things, but there's a sense of healthiness there. You can
Mm.
give people their space, okay, and you
Mm.
enjoy each other's company as well. But if you're
Mm.
not together, you are also fine. Yeah.
Mm.
So I do have issues with that whole compliment thing. But
Yeah. Mm.
again, most likely it's informed by being unhealthy.
Yes, yes. So what you're saying is these people are more likely to attract the same people who like them. Like,
Yes, and it could be in different ways. Okay,
mm,
remember, the underlying belief is I'm not good enough.
yes.
So I'm not good enough can make someone clingy.
Mm.
Not good enough can also make someone super independent.
Oh.
Now, the clingy person sees this super independent person and like this,
Oh.
we compliment. Okay,
Get
we
you. Yeah.
compliment. Yeah,
Mm.
but what's the underlying? That's now when we say we attract
Mm.
brokenness. Brokenness attracts brokenness. So underlying belief system there is I'm not good enough finds I'm
Mm.
not good enough. It could be showing up differently, and you're thinking, yeah, you're thinking he's got exactly what I don't have, and that's a compliment. So
Yeah.
again, that's how we attract what is familiar. It's not so familiar in how it's showing up outwardly, but it's familiar
Mm.
in terms of what's the belief
What the
system.
cause? Yeah.
Yes, the brokenness. So that's
Mm.
what like therapy addresses, the actual brokenness.
Mm. Mm. And what about the like people? Because I've also read this. Most ladies who have been through abusive relationships are more likely also to be in the next abusive relationship.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
usually happens there?
It's what's familiar. Again, subconsciously. That's all. Like I said, when we, for example, you grew up in a chaotic, quarreling, fighting family, and you're like, I will never ever. You know me. I see signs of that. I'm
I'm
out.
out. Yeah.
But you might find it, but you will recreate it because you haven't this you haven't healed. Okay,
Mm.
that's what's familiar. And I don't know if I've used this quote here before, but there's a quote by Carl Jung that says, if you don't make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate.
Mm. It is
Okay,
true.
so subconsciously you're creating what is familiar.
Mm.
Let me give you an example. Like think about puzzle pieces. Like a puzzle,
Mm-hmm.
a puzzle, whatever
Mm-hmm.
pizza, and then
Mm.
it's complete, right? Then because of your childhood experiences, the pieces fall apart and they go into different places.
Mm.
Okay, so for you are seeking something to feel that brokenness. So
Mm.
whatever is familiar, you grab at it. That's how we search for familiar things. Okay, because
Mm.
because familiar may not make sense for other people, but that's what completes you.
Complete.
Okay,
Okay. Mm.
yes. So it might be healthy for you. It might be, but it's like that is the puzzle piece that I'm looking for to
Mm. To
to
fit.
to
Yeah.
build, yeah, to fit in. So it's like we are always looking for unfinished, it's like a circle. So
Mm.
the experiences, there's a brokenness here. So
Mm.
whatever that you can fit there, you want to fit it, and it has to feel familiar to you.
Mm. Okay. So using the same example, what happens when you know it's two whole people?
Okay, so let's define whole.
Okay. Okay.
It's not an event. It's not a one time. It's a process. It's a
Mm,
way of being. It's a way
mm,
of being self-aware, knowing what are your triggers and all that. And I think for me that's what is healthy. So that means
mm,
we'll still make mistakes. We'll still yell, we'll still chomoa a bad word, we'll still
mm,
get triggered, we'll be angry and all that because we are human and we have feelings, and feelings are neither good or bad or wrong. So a whole person is self-aware. And so what
mm,
you're asking is two wholesome people. I think that's just should be is ideal. People are forgiving of themselves, are forgiving of one another. They're
mm,
giving each other space to be, and
mm,
they're also finding time to be with one another. You are
mm,
okay with someone making mistakes because they're human.
mm,
You take criticism or you take feedback
mm,
positively. So I think that's what we all aspire for.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
this is so nice. So as we wind up, so how do we come out of this?
Yeah.
Now, as an adult, first of all, as an adult, because I think we've really talked about the children, but now as an adult, you as a parent who's parenting, how do
Mm.
we come out from all this?
I think it's recognize where what beliefs you are holding, and that is a process. That's why for me, I am a big proponent of therapy, okay, or a
Yeah.
process of coaching. I have
Mm,
seen that people sometimes experience healing in relationships. So
mm,
we get traumatized and broken in relationships, but we also heal in relationships. And so
mm,
that relationship can be a spouse, a partner who creates space for you to heal.
to heal. Okay.
Just because of their level of acceptance, because of just giving you that sense of safety, providing that which you didn't get. So
Mm,
I mean, not everyone needs to go for therapy, okay?
mm,
There are people I know who have experienced levels of
mm,
healing because
mm,
of in positive relationships.
mm,
So I think for me, it's open yourself up to those relationships that are healthy, not the ones that complete you or complement you, but
mm,
really by just being also self-aware in the sense that you know that this one is coming from an authentic place. But
mm,
of course helps coaching sessions, if you need to do coaching, but it's in the context of relationships that we heal
mm.
in
Okay.
whichever way it shows up. Yeah.
Mm.
And
All
now
right.
the relationship can be with a coach, with a therapist, with a mentor, and things like
Mm, mm. Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. I think it's always a pleasure talking to you. I love every bit of it. Thank you so much.
that. Thank you.
So,
That's
as we wind up, please give us your parting shot.
it's never too late. That's usually my biggest communication word out there. It's never too late. At whatever age, the brain is open to new experiences if you are consistent, if you
Mm,
are intentional. Therefore,
mm,
it's never too late to begin to do things differently. And you have to
mm,
ways and in small bits.
mm,
Now that we have information, let's make sure that we are providing that kind of environment to our children. And I like to talk about you being that one stable, supportive adult in a child's
mm.
life. Okay,
Because
that's
you
a huge factor for resilience. The other one
mm,
is a state of learned skills that
mm,
it is possible to teach these skills.
mm.
It's possible to teach these skills to children and to adults. And
Yes.
if you will allow me now to talk about Stawi, because that's what we are doing. We have
Mm,
we have put together to just create spaces where it's a structured environment for families to learn how to be more emotionally aware, how
mm,
to regulate their emotions, okay, how to identify these emotions, frustrations,
mm.
and all that, because we didn't have a setting where we were taught to do that. and
Yeah.
and so there are spaces that can be curated
Mm,
for people to
mm,
build those skills. And
mm,
based on research, it shows that those are the skills that we need now to experience the wholeness you are talking about. We come for well-being. Our launch is in December, and on all my social media pages, we are talking about it. How you can start and get involved. So, Dr. Carol.
Okay.
So they have. We can post that in the chat.
Yes, yeah. That's what I want to say. So we're going to post the details of how we come on our comment sections, and also the links to Dr. Carol. I think you'll understand why I just love Dr. Carol. Directly to my heart. Like it's so legit and it's so real. Thank you so much, Dr. I truly appreciate it. Asante sana.
Yeah, it's always an honor and pleasure to be on this platform, and I also enjoy the interactions. I think there is an alignment here, and we are thankful.
Definitely. Yeah. Thank you so much.
All right.
Bye-bye, everyone. I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as we did. Bye.
Okay, bye.